Okay, so what is a service? Service is basically use context, right? So we're gonna have like we have a dummy service in here. So the idea is to use this simple console log method in this component in here, right here. We're gonna use it, okay? So basically, what is a service? It's use context. So you create a service and like functions, API calls, arrays, anything you want, and then you can just share them across multiple components across your app. Like it's just use context, right? So to create a service, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go do this. I think it's ng. I actually have it somewhere here. No, I'm not gonna do it this way. It's gonna take forever. I'm just gonna go into my notes. So normally it's like this ng folder name. So we're gonna use folder name services. Yeah, and this is gonna be dummy. Yeah. Now it automatically adds .service .ts, so you don't need to write dummy service like this. I made a mistake. Like so, just use dummy. So this will create a service. Oh shit! It went services service. No. Oh, it's because I'm already in I'm already in services. Yeah, that's the problem. Let me just delete this real quick. Will this crash our app? No, it doesn't. Because sometimes you see when you delete stuff, you have to go into, where is it, the module one? App module, yeah. Yeah, so services are not being added to app module. Okay, so that's good. So now we can just do create new service and we call it dummy, right? So this will add a dummy service in here. Now, what you're wondering, if you're wondering what is spec is just a testing file. We're not gonna do that, okay? So now we have our dummy service. We're gonna create a method. Remember, it's a class components, so we need to use methods are basically functions without the declaration let, right? So we're going to use a simple console log whatever, and we're going to console log um, dummy service, okay? Dummy service, right? So now we created a dummy service, we created a method inside the class, and it's automatically exported. All right, so now we need to inject this, whatever it's called. I think it's called injection, right? Now you can find all this information here. I mean, it's a very, very neat description. I'm gonna link it in the video below, so you have access to this. Okay, so now we go to the component where we want to use the service. So it's gonna be our task component, right? And we need to import this uh, this service in here. So we need to import dummy service. This is standard import from, I think it's like this. One more. Yes, services, and then we want dummy like this. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing you need to do, you need to add it as a provider into your add components object. All right, so the way to do that is like this. I think it's called providers, right? Like this. If I'm not mistaken, let me just double check my notes. Yeah, and then we just put this in here. Oh, whoops. No, no, it has to be like this. Yeah, that's correct. All right, so now we're ready to use it. So now this is kind of injected into our component. And we need to put it into the constructor. as a argument. Okay, so the way to do that, we put private. It does not work without private for some reason. So private, and then we put any name you want. You can call it shake and bake. I'll actually call it shake and bake. You call it shake and bake. Then this thing, well, I don't know what it's called, double dots, right? And then the name of the service. So you're basically kind of importing it into your component, I think, right? I think that should be right, right? Okay, so I think it's good to go now, right? Yeah. So now you can use shake and bake. So now shake and bake is basically the name for the dummy service. I don't understand why you need to rename it. I really don't. But like you have to factor in that shake and bake is now effectively this component in here, this total class thing, right? So if you want to reference simple console log, right, you just use dot notation. Now, normally they recommend putting it into this thing. So we put this shake and bake dot, and then we want to call the method, which is simple console log. And then we put like this. And I think that should work, right? No, I made a mistake somewhere. So, oh, yeah, I put it in the wrong place. I put it as a, yeah, so you need to put it in here. My apologies, as an argument, I put it into the actual constructor, but you need to put it into the argument between the ordinary brackets, right? Round brackets, right? So now it's working, okay? So now if we go to, now if we try to, you see now we can see console log dummy services running. I know it's a little bit confusing, but just try to, it's basically use context, right? It's like use context. The only difference is you are injecting it or importing it through this code, right? You import it in here one time, you put it as a provider, second time, you are renaming it into a shake and bake component. So this is third time you're importing it. And then you can use it as a new name. All right. It's a little bit like, it's like in React, you just import use context, uh, use global, right? Because that's going to be your React hook. Then you need to, second time, you need to deconstruct, put it, use context, right? And then you can use it, right? So in here, there is an extra step of just renaming it. And the way to use it is by using this. This basically, you need to understand if you're doing class components, what is this? I'm talking, when I say what is this, I'm talking about this, the actual function. Property, this, right? It basically refers to this component here, right? So if you want to do, for example, let me give you an example. Blah equals demo this, okay? So if you want to console log blah, right? You want to console log this variable here. You need to use, I think, console log this blah. I think it's like this, right? Yeah, you see? So now it's console logging. I wonder if it's going to work without this, because I noticed sometimes it works without. Let me just quick check this real quick. Yeah, you see. But the good news is you can use a the extension is called error lens, and it will give you errors straight away in here. So it kind of guides you when you make mistakes, right? So if you don't know when to use this system, error lens. So this one here, extension is called error lens, right? Like this. Error lens. There you go. Yeah, this one here. install it, and then you'll be good to go. I should have it running already. Anyway, let me just have a look. Yeah, so normally you'll see this error coming up in here, but error lens will show it in here. All right, so this is the way we do it simply, right? Now we can try to pass a argument. All right, so let's just remove this mumbo jumbo. So let's pass an argument in here. We call it dummy arg, okay? And let's receive it in here. So let's call it, oh, whoops. Yeah, I made a mistake. So dummy service plus dummy arg. And dummy arg like this, I think, right? Yeah, it's TypeScript, so you have to, whatever, you have to. Now you see the bullshit, right? You see the bullshit, right? Oh, it's because it's an argument. Yeah. You don't need this when it's an argument, okay? When it's an argument, you don't need this. If it's coming from a constructor, you need this. If it's an argument inside a function method, you do not need this, right? So now we're going to pass dummy arg as a whatever you want. So now we should technically console log. Yeah, you see, whatever you want is logging now. Yeah, so basically you don't need to do this in here because this is not part of the class, it's part of the function. Well, in class it's called a method, right? But it's the same shit. Okay, so just make a note when to use this. If it's part of a class, so it's inside of constructor or it's in here, like a class variable, you have to use this. If it's inside of a method, if it's a method argument, you do not need to use this. All right, take care. Bye-bye.